we need to clear up this I'm going to be a dictator on day one for one day, I'm going to drill, and I'm going to close the border, but I'm not going to be a dictator after that conversation, because it just doesn't make any sense. And maybe it's just me. So let's take a listen to how Donald Trump is now trying to backpedal and backtrack his way out of this situation that has brought the word dictator and dictatorship into the political vernacular.
And I'm going to be a dictator, Sean, for one day. And I'm going to close up the border, and I'm going to drill, baby, drill. And after that, I'm not going to become a dictator. Right?
So he's trying to blame Sean Hannity for posing the question. Then he's trying to position it that he said he would only be a dictator for one day. Well, you can't be a dictator for only one day. You're either a dictator or you're not a dictator. And as far as I'm concerned, he was already a dictator years ago when he decided to ban Muslims from entering the United States, or when he decided to gas American citizens for peacefully protesting or disappearing people from the streets, or how about a national abortion ban? I mean, these things, you could argue, might come under the title and heading of fascism, authoritarianism, and dictatorship. And now, obviously, his plans for the next Trump administration are far more doubled down in terms of the authoritarian isms. So, being a dictator for one day, he is now obsessed with the fact that he said that, and that the media is trying to twist what he said to make it sound like that he's going to be a dictator indefinitely when he said he'd just be a dictator for one day. I mean, I can't believe we're even having to have this conversation. It lacks any intelligence. And yet Donald Trump is once again forcing us to have to intellectualize his stupidity.
So here's what the fake news does. It's so horrible. So I said, I want to be a dictator for one day. And then if you go on just like 10 seconds, it says the two things, right? We're going to have a great border. We're going to drill, baby, drill, those two things. We're going to have energy. We're going to make so much money. We're not going to have to worry about your Social Security. So I said those two things. I said, I'm going to be a dictator. And they cut it.
And the fact that he's now blaming the fake news media, as he describes, for cutting the audio and the sound once he finishes saying, I'm going to be a dictator. And the fact that, on day one is now become, it's dropped from the coverage, is also a completely pointless exercise. Firstly, he's referring to them as the fake news media, which in itself is dictatorial, which in itself is fascistic, because the free press has to be free. That is part of a democracy. And the moment that a leader, former leader, future leader says that the news is false, the enemy of the people, don't listen to it, it's all fake, that is dictatorship. So just in this clip, Donald Trump has proven that his dictatorship is ongoing by insisting that American citizens do not believe what the free press are saying.
So all over television said, Donald Trump wants to be a dictator. Listen to it. I'm going to be a dictator, cut. Now that's really, and it said for one day.
And then to claim that after day one, he could suddenly go back to being the lovely non-dictator Donald Trump that people might be used to, which of course doesn't make any sense. The fact that he's saying this stuff out loud at a rally and his poor followers are having to listen to it and also try and get their heads around it, it's just embarrassing. You can't be a dictator for one day and then not for the rest of your tenure when you've already been a dictator for 4 years. It just beggars belief that he is still talking about this, and that his supporters, even Fox hosts, are claiming that, he was joking, he only said it for one day. You don't joke about dictatorship. You don't joke about authoritarianism. You don't joke about closing the border, having a great border, as he calls it, which again is just weird, and then drill, baby, drill. I mean, nobody even knows what that means. I mean, I presume it's something about, energy independence and doing more drilling because he doesn't believe in climate change and wants to be the one that is making the point that we have the fossil fuel here and we can just access it, and then he admits that we could get very rich. He's obviously talking about himself and his friends in the oil industry.
And I did also finish and said, and then after that, I'm not going to be a dictator ever again. So we were having fun, and they've got me saying I want to be a dictator. These are sick people, I'm telling you. We have to straighten out our free press.
This dictator is not going anywhere. I just wish it would go away. That's how I really feel. Like, I don't really want to be talking about him every day. I don't really want to have to be covering his idiotic speeches that don't make any sense. But it's important that you understand what we're dealing with. If this guy can't even speak at a rally, a safe, comfortable environment where he has a teleprompter and a friendly audience, how can he speak to foreign dignitaries? How can he offer any skills of diplomacy or have any ability to, deal with serious issues on an international level? He just can't. He's just a pox on all of our lives. We're all having to deal with the aftermath of this malignant narcissist and his stupid announcements. So the next time you get into a conversation with someone who says, he said he was only going to be a dictator for one day, explain to them that is not possible. Explain to them that dictators don't suddenly go, I'm a dictator, I'm not a dictator. It doesn't work like that. Donald Trump is a dangerous autocrat. He has proven it in his previous 4 years. He has proven it in his promises for November 2024. It's proven in the Project 2025 document, where the authoritarianism and the dictatorship is the plan, where they're recruiting people to effectively replace the federal government with Trump loyalists from day one. That in itself is a dictatorship. That is the plan. They're not trying to hide it. Trump's trying to backpedal because he's embarrassed, because he was caught out, because, there was an admission that he probably didn't mean to say that he would be a dictator, and that's why he changed his story and said only on day one. This is what Trump does. He doesn't know how to communicate effectively. So he says stuff because he has no inner monologue, and then he has to backtrack, or his lawyers have to issue a statement, or an apology has to be printed in a newspaper. The guy is an imbecile, but he's also really dangerous. And we, as citizens and as a community, a community of people who need to feel safe and secure and know that our interests, all of us, no matter what color or flavor we might be, we need to know that the person in charge has our best interests at heart. And he doesn't. He wants to divide us. He hates minorities. He despises shithole countries or black and brown people who may have originated from there, as he assumes that everybody has who doesn't look like him. He is now firmly positioned as a far-right Christian nationalist who hates women and has banned abortion and taken ownership of banning abortion, has promised that Muslims are not coming into the US, although Muslims have got nothing to do with anything, when the threat to the US is white Christian nationalism and people with a well-stocked militia. We're living in the upside down with this guy constantly making a noise on national television. I just wish it would go away. So we really have to listen to these words and just explain to the people that are taking them seriously that he is an idiot and that the words that he says do not make any sense in reality. They might make sense in the weird Republican MAGA movement, but in reality, where ordinary, regular, law-abiding, kind, respectful, and humane people live, the stuff that he comes out with is just a joke. And there is a tragedy attached to this. He is a tragic character. The fact that he's having to say stuff like this, the fact that here in the US we're having to debate whether I'll be a dictator for one day is a threat, an empty threat, or a threat to be taken seriously. Listen to what he says. Talk about it with your friends and family. Don't shut him out. Because, there's only 10 months to go until that all-important vote, when hopefully Donald Trump will become a thing of the past.
We were having fun.
I'm Anthony Davis. You can hear me on the 5-Minute News podcast. You can catch me on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with Midas Touch.